Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the final concurrent session for the MERN Forum today.
Better start again.
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the final session of the MERN Forum today. The session this afternoon is going to be presented by Joanna Black and Orest Kapp. They will be talking about the use of graphic novels and digital comics as a creative platform for teacher candidates in home economics education. So a very different topic, and again, one covering another spectrum of the curricula that's really important, and I'm going to turn it over to them right away.
Okay, I just welcome to the session. And I wanted to indicate our backgrounds as well. I come from a visual art background, and I've been teaching for many years visual arts education within the community in Canada and in the United States. And so for me, the emergence of technology and digital technologies with visual art has been a really nice partnership. And so we are going to be talking about that in relation to a study that Dr. Orest Kapp and I did 3 years ago with comics, using the software program Comic Lives. And we're actually, this study is longitudinal, so it's ongoing at the present time.
Thank you, Joanna. My area is vocational technical education, and I also work with the home economics people in the province. So they come through for our methodology classes. And working very closely with Joanna, since she was using also that particular program, we said, well, let's try it out to see how useful this software, in fact, could be to the clientele. Especially when we realized that some of the divisions had the software in their banks, but none of the teachers were using it. And so we felt it's time to do a little exploration around those particular sides and begin to find out if in fact it is useful and can be implemented in various ways.
Okay. Want to go to the next slide? Good. So this is our class and our students up here. And again, it was about 3 years ago that we did this, and here is Orest and I teaching within the classroom. And so we didn't do it in a computer lab per se. What we did was we had the students bring their laptops in, and it's quite a versatile program. It's downloadable. You can actually obtain it for a trial for about a month, and we advise the students to do that.
I should mention we have a lab also, and in the lab we have 25 licensed units, and they're about $25, $30 a piece for individuals to be able to work on their programs. However, we did have our own software loaded and downloaded into our own programs.
And you can actually obtain them very cheaply for the school site licenses. So that is very beneficial.
We just quoted over here Cuban, and I think Dennis referred to him this afternoon also a little bit from his literature. But the point I wanted to make is only basically that some of the teachers in the field still hesitate to incorporate some of the new software that is available or that could help them basically motivate or deliver the content that they want to prepare for their students. And so the intent over here was basically to try to explore the tangible aspects of that software, and can it really help us through an exploratory mode deliver the content that we wanted to focus on.
And what Dennis was talking about was that Cuban was saying that oftentimes you can place all these great technologies within the classroom, but they end up being put into the back of the room gathering dust because the teachers don't know how to utilize them. So what we looked at here is the need to bridge the gap between the tech worlds of the youth and traditional educational classroom pedagogy in order to create the atmosphere in our classrooms, excitement and motivation and learning. And what had happened was I was implementing it in the visual art class, and Orest had decided to implement it in the human ecology. It is a cross-curricular software, and we actually see the benefit of it in other areas, but particularly this study is about human ecology.
Yeah, and we wanted to bring in some innovation some new ideas to try to motivate and capture the interest of the students when they're working on various projects. So we felt that this software could be possibly one option or one alternative to try to get that particular content.
So in order to expose the students to comics, we had them look at a variety of different graphic novels, comics, and analyze them in terms of, well, how do you go about expressing content? How do these artists do that in digital works? And so these are some examples. Persepolis, that was actually turned into an animation. A movie, yeah. Yeah, it's superb. Yes. And it deals with political, historical issues. So the students were analyzing these works and looking at the fact that really you can cross boundaries, curriculum boundaries. Content is phenomenally rich. It's not like it was 50, 75, 80 years ago. Now there's just a whole vast array of content that you can deal with as an educator. So here are some other texts that we looked at, including the Watchmen series, which is quite famous and traditional. And we analyzed it not only in terms of content, but also in terms of style, in terms of the text, in terms of the imagery. How did these artists convey their content? And so the students presented that to each other. Here's more of a traditional My Story, looking at not only genres of fiction, but also history. Like, I don't know if you're aware of Louis Riel graphic novel about that content. There's also, is that going back? Forward, okay. The Watchmen. And then we can proceed to superheroes and how to actually depict them for English, and then we proceed to science fiction, and to more conveying information that's important in manuals.
This one in particular that you see on the slide was basically designed for a science class. It's a document in digital or in comic format, basically to accompany the science unit that they're teaching. This was done by a teacher as part of a project for grade 6 science curriculum in the province of Manitoba. This basically, we took this out of a maintenance manual. This is a major tractor manufacturer that sells in third world countries, and tractors need to be maintained. And rather than worrying about the language in which it's going to be written, since some of them in the third world have difficulty reading, especially if you go to Ethiopia and some of the other countries, they felt that this way, or this process, or the step-by-step process is a better explanation on how to maintain and repair the tractor. The oil changes in there, the filter change, the electrical, everything is done in color. In fact, we refer to this one as our advanced format. The black and white is the lower level, which is also in color format. So they have them available.
And here's the Louis Riel book, which I think is implemented in some of the school boards in Winnipeg to teach about him. And this one is also historical.
Right, historical over here, it's basically referring to the Ukrainian Holodomor, and it's published in French with a publisher from Italy, but it's all in comic book format. So it talks about the history, it documents basically the process, and it's entitled Un récit de témoignage d'Igor les cahiers ukrainiens, memories of the time of USSR.
And finally, we talked to the students about the seriousness of novels. Now, I mean, I don't know if you're aware, but in the 1950s in the United States, there was parental group movement that said, comics are not important. They shouldn't be part of the pedagogical process. We should not be taking them seriously. And in fact, they went even further to say we should not expose our children to them. But in fact, in the last 60 years, half a century, it's become such a serious and important way to convey information, not only textually but visually. And Maus was published by Art Spiegelman, I think about a decade and a half, 2 decades ago, and he actually won the Pulitzer Prize. It's the first graphic novel to have that prize connected. It's 2-volume text, and it's about the Holocaust. So he sets it historically in the Holocaust based on his parents' lives. And then he puts it into the present-day situation in New York where he's living today and juxtaposes the 2 different worlds together. It's a wonderful text so that we really were highlighting for the students the complex content that could be put into graphic novels and comics.
All right. This is just a shot of some of the computers that students were using. And again, classes, actually students working on the software in teams. Just a review that instructors still hesitate, and we need to incorporate and examine the application of new software for teaching purposes.
So this was our question when we started using the Comic Life software. What is the learning potential of this software program in a human ecology education class? And with human ecology, do you want to explain really the areas that you cover?
Yeah, human ecology actually covers 3 clusters. It covers family studies, it covers nutrition and foods, and also textiles and design. So those 3 areas cover the area of home economics. And so we wanted to explore to see if it has any potential application for classroom teaching, and what approaches could this facilitate in the process itself, and would it be in fact useful to incorporate.
Okay. You can
Yes. The student population that we had 1 male, 11 female students. These are all after degree. These people already have a bachelor's degree either in art or in science, and they come to the Faculty of Education for an additional 2 year to become teachers. And so we focused only on the undergraduate individuals that are specializing in home economics education. But in the context of that specialization, as part of the orientation, Joanna actually came in to give him a little bit of orientation, because she was the one that was initially using the software. And so we had them actually get that exposure on what to look for in that particular software and how to go about it.
In fact, 2 of our students I taught in another class in technology and also in visual art. So it was a 7-week intensive human ecology education course that was offered 3.5 years ago. And this is what Comic Life looks like when you download it. So you have that kind of text. And I highly recommend that you just spend, it would take you about an hour to actually play around with it. It's not a complex program. And so we'll show you a little bit more the way that it looks. Here, when you download it, you have an area that you can actually construct the comics in, or graphic novel, depending on what you do. And the easiest way, if you're not an artist, and in human ecology, a lot of the students were thinking, I don't want to deal with graphic imagery, I'm scared of this. We said, no, it's really easy. Actually, all you need is a digital camera. And then what you can do is put the photographs on the desktop and bring them into Comic Life. You don't need to be able to draw at all whatsoever. You just need to be able to point the camera and to take the pictures in order to communicate what you want to say graphically. So those are the photographs, an example of what it would look like within the Comic-like software. Up here, you can construct the actual page and how you want to divide it. And then when you actually go from library to detail, you're able in another area right over here to decide how you want those photographs to look like. What kind of style? Is it going to be black and white? Is it going to be a 60s Archie style? Will it look like a Peanuts, Charlie Brown kind of comic? Will it look like The Watchmen or like Art Spiegelman? So you have a lot of control over the actual way it is visually depicted. And it's very easy to do. Someone doesn't have to ever have had a visual art course to be able to manipulate comic life. Here are balloons to put in the text, and you literally click and drag them up onto what you're working on there. Do you want to add?
Yeah, the balloons that Joanna refers to, you can actually put them on right on the individual or the square that you have in mind, or the rectangle. You can stretch them, and you can put in text also. And the text you can put in other languages. Yeah, I've had it in Ukrainian, I had it in French. So if you're interested in other languages, you can create the whole comic life in a language of your choice very easily. It also, over here on the left-hand side, as you can see, there is that page that you're working on is right there. So it works a little bit like PowerPoint on the left-hand side, where you have all your slides, and you can see actually what you're working on. It follows a little bit that format. We've had students actually, rather than using PowerPoint as a presentation, use Comic Life as a presentation. Under the review button, where you can review each slide and use that as a presentation, which is completely different from the PowerPoint, especially if you're using, or if you're asking your students in a school situation or a classroom situation constantly to present, and they're always using PowerPoint. I'm sure after a while they'll get not very much motivation and interest, not again. So you have alternative to PowerPoint, Prezi, and you have a Comic Life as a possible presentation.
I would say that it's almost easier than PowerPoint to use, if not equally as easy. Okay. I'll let you do that.
So we had a rubric actually for collecting our information, and the rubric was designed to reflect on the pre-organization or the pre-determination of how they go about laying out their storyboarding, also the creation of the Comic Life itself, and then the after. So there were like 3 little phases that we have gone through, and we've documented that in that particular process. This is an example of work using Comic Life done by students. All right, but keep in mind, this student over here, which is a home ec major, was also, I believe, a visual arts specialist. So in fact, she drew these all by hand before, and taken a picture of that, and then imported it into her Comic Life, which is a little bit more time-consuming, but that's what she wanted to do.
So in essence, if you do have students who are good at the visual art process, drawing, painting, they can utilize their skills and create it by hand, any image that they want to produce.
Right. And here's an example of the sewing and textile area. Here's the teacher basically basically testing out the approach itself. But in fact, what she wanted to do is, usually when you give projects for your students, they're always in a written format. She gave directions on how to do, in this particular case, which would be a pillow. She laid everything out in a comic book format with information and text and directions on how to do it. And I think you'll see a little bit some of that. So, all right, so here you see basically the process on how to go about doing it, including the explanations, the bubbles with the text and so on, all using comic book format for a textile project.
So in essence, the students are not only researching what they want to communicate, and Dr. Dennis Halenka talked about that technology can be used to inform. So they had to be informed about what they were talking about. But also he talked about technology can be used to communicate. And we were asking the students to communicate, and these are examples of how they are communicating. And this is one of the other very serious issues in human ecology.
This is under family studies, and the individuals decided to talk about sexuality. And they were using, Joanna referred to the styles that you can refer to in 1930s, 40s, 50s, and so on, to give it the effect that you would like to give it. This is one of the effects of that style. So if you want to, I don't know if it embellishes it or makes it a little different. And the students basically then have an opportunity to do that very rapidly within the system. This is still part of the same one. So you can see this is actually a real picture, but then because of the style you selected, this is what happens to the background, which makes it look like a comic. Foods and nutrition for the area of foods. Again, food safety is important. Here you have an example of cartoon characters emphasizing the need to teach safety as part of the food and nutrition component.
And that student, if you go back, you can see that that student used a style of Japanese anime. And so you can see that it's very flexible. I mean, you know, when you realize that artists in the past were hired and it would take hours upon hours upon hours to produce a consistent style, yet with the technology in Comic Life, it can take you a few seconds to do what they used to do. And enable people who aren't usually talented in visual art to be able to produce this kind of work.
This one over here is an example of food and nutrition that was created. And she entitled it, "The Night I Made Raisins Bran." These are muffins. And using the comic life approach as directions on how to go about it. But in fact, it's also a story. So there's reading in here, there's literature, there's writing, there's art. And each page that you see here, this is Joanne's prior student who had a background in art education, that basically they were all hand created and then transferred into Comic Life.
So at the end of the study, we asked students for their feedback using Comic Life and utilizing the software, and particularly asking them, how do you feel this is useful in terms of pedagogy?
I'll just read an example over here. I've created a comic about sexual reproduction, fertilization. I have used Comic Life program, loved it. This is a good program to use as an instructional tool, right? Because it helps or allows students to be creative and versatile. And one of the key things that we were interested in, can you use it also easily? And as you can see, the students are telling you, yes, it was easy to use through the experimentation process that they have gone through, and very easily to create.
Okay, another student said this program can be used in many different ways across the home economics curriculum. It is a way to have students engage in the material in an interactive way. They are having fun creating educational pieces of art while utilizing technology.
This one is very interesting because she says, when I created my comic product, I wanted to show it off. Right, wanted to share it with other individuals in the class, but also with her husband. Look at what I created, right? And the power, basically, of what I've created and how I can use this. And so, basically, we felt that that was an indication for us that there was some element of interest, motivation, and if that could only be transferred to the students in the same way, then it will be helpful as part of the process.
So in terms of research questions, what is the learning potential of a software program called Comic Life in a human ecology education class? And can the Comic Life program be used as a communication teaching tool in the three areas, food, family, and textiles, of human ecology education?
Right. And the responses are there. They responded positively to the learning potential. That yes, we can utilize this in a teaching situation. It is a good teaching communications tool also. You can also use it as a PowerPoint or a substitute. And easy to use and easy to learn. And I think that's a key feature, because if it's hard to use, a teacher is not going to be interested in implementing it, never mind the students. But if it's easy to use, easy to apply, then you know that we can incorporate this rapidly into that particular setting.
Okay, another area that's we wanted to point out is the aesthetic value for course participants. They really liked that aspect, since it had a variety of comic styles and layout designs, and it had the capabilities, plus it enabled even the less artistically inclined individuals to design quality work. I did teach this also in visual arts education, and it led to very successful graphic novels and comic books there, which we bound. And you can go further and you can bind them if you, should you want the students to do that. And even in a class, you could have a collective, work.
Overall, that there was a favorable view basically to the use of this particular program in the 3 clusters, because we've experimented in the clusters themselves. And we asked them, well, would you use this if you had to teach in your classes? And the response, yes, because it was a new way of delivering the content and attracting the students, where creativity basically is involved also to the subject matter that you're trying to get them engaged to. We felt that this would be also a nice way for us to continue to incorporate that in our methods courses. So I'm still using it in my methods courses currently. Joanne, I think you're using it in your courses on a regular basis. We've also used it in the summer institutes in other courses when we were teaching the internment issue in Canada and the Holodomor issue in a summer institute. And also it had a tremendous impact. And then here in that situation, we also found out that in the classroom there was a teacher from one of the divisions that did not use the program because was afraid to use the program and didn't know what it was about. And so it opened up her eyes, and she said she's going to use it now. Right? So awareness, exposure, and training becomes important as part of the process.
And we can really see it across all different curricular areas. I do teach it in technology as well. And really, it just takes an hour of sitting down and training the teachers for this software program, and it has an infinite amount of possibilities at the early, middle, and senior year level.
In fact, in the morning class, there was reference made to Comic Life for early years, right? And so our hope is the name was mentioned, but in fact, our intention was to focus and take one particular software and show you how it can be implemented and used effectively for teaching purposes.
So at this point, we'd like to open it up to any questions that you might want to ask us. You're welcome. Okay, thank you for coming. And if you have any other questions, we'll be up at the front for a little bit.
Thank you.
On behalf of MERN, I'd like to thank you, Joanna and Horst, for your presentation. I know that had I had this available to me when I was a classroom teacher, even for my grade 3 and 4 students, they would have stepped into it very, very quickly because of the creativity it allows them, along with an authentic way to really express their learning. and also demonstrate to others in a way where students love to watch and look at the work that they each produce for one another. So on behalf of the Manitoba Education Research Network, I'd like to thank you for your presentation today, and wish that you'll be able to convince even more prospective teacher candidates to take that program with them when they step into the schools. Thank you very much.